I've joined Sapiens a few years ago. I'm responsible for our P&C product strategy. Sapiens has about 15 customers, life insurance, short-term insurance across Southern Africa. You'll hear this a couple of times when I'm speaking. It's my favorite place to work in the world for a number of reasons. Tony gave me a brief this morning. Effectively, he says, look, be factual, be inspiring, and be entertaining. And I'm like, yeah, that's not a problem. There only is one problem for all of this, and that's the fact that I'm English. But I will do my best for you. I've got 5 kind of sections. We'll talk for about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. I'll give you some sort of vision of what the AI-driven future insurance organization looks like. I am going to talk about short-term insurance, but you can kind of use your imagination and see how the principles and the themes that we talk about will be applied across insurance, insurtech, finance, regardless. So that's fine. We'll have a look at how this kind of theory starts to go into practice in terms of insurance software. We'll have a quick review of the South African market. Like, all this great technology is wonderful, but is there a need for it? And if there is a need for it, where's the need? And then a couple of lessons that I've learned from outside of insurance or outside of finance, because I always want to look around, the world and see what's going on and bring good things into the market. And then we'll finish off with a summary. This is a very weird way to start a presentation, but I'm going to do it like this because it brings the story home. So the story starts. A small fire has broken out at one of your insured properties that I've circled there in the red in Palabora. I chose that name because I just love the sound of it. So a small fire's broken out. One of the insured properties. The fire has triggered an Internet of Things device that automatically notifies the emergency services. They attend site, they check that everyone's safe. At the same time, the IoT, the Internet of Things device, has notified the insurance company directly. The insurance company at this point triggers an automatic message to the drone fleet, their brand new fleet of drones, that attends the site of the fire, takes a whole bunch of measurements, takes a whole bunch of scans of the building using combinations of LiDAR, radar, infrared, takes a 3D image of that building and the damage that's been caused. The information is then sent back to the insurance policy software system. We now understand what actually needs to be fixed. So we can automatically assign the closest available construction repair agent. He has the right tools and parts to complete the job. All that information is then decoded again by the system. The work schedule is sent to the end customer, the homeowner, via their mobile phone. They can accept that job with a single click and all the fixes that are going. And at the end of the day, all that data, the cost of the claim and the process is now factored into the underwriting process. It's automatically calculating the price of the next home insurance dynamically. So that whole interaction things is happening in real time. In terms of the senior leadership of the insurance company, they receive the hourly and automated P&L, profit and loss, contract, company view. It's got that Palabora claim cost factored into it as well. If that was a very, very expensive claim, we're also monitoring the executive's heart rate so we can dispatch an emergency services to go and fix him if there's a problem. Add all that story together. What does that actually enable us to do? I'm talking about a whole bunch of things there. So it's a really interesting way of looking at it. I've talked about embedded insurance. I've talked about AI, machine learned, automatic first notification of loss. The consumer did not notify us. The machine did. We looked at the supplier verification dispatch, touchless, no proof claim. At no point did we ask the consumer, the house owner, to send us anything. Obviously, we're able to make that claim payment and the fix automatically, that theme called parametric insurance that we come across. And we're also able to talk about, the auto reserving, the real-time underwriting, all happening at one point, at one time. And I see that as kind of like a weird story to start, but I also see something else. We can do all of that now. And using the combination of the business rules, the technology, and the AI, that is actually so close to happening. And in some sectors and some kind of segments, it actually does. House claims are a bit difficult, but if you imagine like the car claims, automotive claims, where you're able to use the camera to make a damage assessment, all this is right in front of us right now. So we talk about, the future of technology, it's actually here now today, and it's a really surprising story. So if we start to convert this around a little bit, I'm now going to go on to what this looks like in software and how this is changing. So this is my second real life story. I get to come to South Africa a lot and spend time with our customers. And my favorite job is to walk around the floor with them and spend time and see how people are using the software. It's one of the nicest things I could do in my job, to be honest. So imagine I'm one of your employees, your agents or brokers, and I'm working in a customer contact center. I deal with customers across service or claims. This is a real life photograph from Johannesburg last week. Hopefully you can't see any personal identifiable information on the screen. So as an agent, I have my screen, I have my software, I can work around, I can find all the details and all the information I need on it, and it's so cool. But if you were to call me, got access to all the policy information and everything like that, what do I actually know about you? One more observation about walking around these offices, just a thought I should say. I have this theory. The more senior you are in the insurance company, the more screens you have. So I can always make a count of the number of screens. So it's just an interesting observation. But listen, I'm on the phone to the customer. Imagine I'm one of your employees at agents, and I fire up my BI package that gives me all the insights I need. Slight problem. Please hold on a minute while I go and fire up a system that gives me all the insight, intelligence, the AI, and everything that I need that I don't have access to. And I can feel some of you smiling enough because it's a real story. Likelihood is I don't have access to that system. I don't have enough license to go around my team. This level of insight into all these kind of new things that are coming out now in terms of the reporting, the insight's only for the marketing team or something, and they ain't sharing it. And what I want to give you a couple of examples now is how you take this technology and this AI and actually embed it into a screen. I do not want to make this like a sales call for Sapiens or anything close to this. But you're hearing a lot of things like, co-agent or agentic AI. And for the record, I don't really like those terms. So I prefer to call, how we embed AI into our software and the tools. This is what we actually mean by giving employees the tools to do their jobs better. And the way the development's heading, you've got two screenshots there. Insight, a point of need that helps your employees do their job better. I'll do a deep dive of this in a moment. And then action orientated, which is the second screen. The AI is actually recommending tasks and actions based, and the machine's actually driving the process. And it's a really interesting way to think about it. So on one side of it, we're saying, look, as an employee, this human machine relationship that the conference is all about, we want to give you the insight that helps you do the job better, that helps you service the customer better. And then the other half, the other way the software is branching off is the AI is actually going to do a lot of the kind of calculations of the call that's coming in and recommend that best action and the best way that you can service that customer. And it's a really, really nice way of thinking it. And this is all about embedding the intelligence in the workflow and what the agent, the customer, or if a customer is actually self-servicing themselves, it's embedding this. So the old way of looking at it is, yes, there's all this intelligence, the AI that sits outside a system. What does it look like when you bring it into the system? So a couple of examples of this that's been deployed in real time. So this is a real live screen. If you imagine a software screen, it's got all the information on it like I showed you at the start. What you're able to do now is just take this buying journey or this service journey, and you're giving an agent the knowledge of maybe 10 agents. You're giving one individual person access to the organizational brain of your insurance company or your finance company. And these are all service nudges, or they're all things that will help. And I'll just pick out a couple of examples. So the customer's called in, he wants to buy a policy of some description. Underinsurance is always going to be a problem, no matter which market we're working in. So we can use some of the machine learning models that describes the next best product. So AI-driven sales assistant. What do other businesses or customers buy who are just like you? We're able to calculate the values we're going along. We're able to understand the buying propensity. We're able, if it's a small business or a business, to pull in ChatGPT equivalent. So you're seeing in natural language what that kind of business or the profile of the customer actually does. We can make recommendations on the product. So bottom left-hand side, smart product. And then we're also able to pre-fill information and enrich the data. So a call center I was at last week with one of the banks, I think it took 15 minutes for them to get the information, filling the form in like we all have to do. And now we can all pre-fill that. Once you pre-fill that information automatically using, Swiss Re, Veridian, number of data to providers, TransUnion, etc., all of a sudden the conversation is switching to product. What products do we need to serve you to make sure you've got the best service from us as an industry? So these are all service nudges to make sure the level of coverage is the best you could ever do. So I just wanted to kind of highlight this as an example, because you're seeing this is human and technology. I can still have the conversation with the customer, but I'm also bringing in all these themes that we talked about with that story at the start to say, hey, this is human plus technology. We're using the intelligence of the system. We're using AI to kind of go out, fetch the information, come back and display it in a logical sense that anyone could understand. So, that's very much the future of the product. Tony mentioned at the start, so this is another interesting way of looking at how these things will start to impact our business. You've all got software, you all work in software, and I'm kind of hoping you've noticed this by now. So I used the AI example there at the start there of a customer or an agent looking at it, but in the background there's obviously an awful lot more going on. So there's a lot of AI assistance in the background. This is regression testing. This is all the testing and the promoting of things, and we're changing in the software. Now, there is a byproduct of this that we have to think about as business leaders. Each feature improvement that you're seeing there from version 15 of a software release, if I can just put that on my cursor, let's say this is 3 years ago, to version 20, you can see how the features are incrementally growing and they're exponentially growing. So each time we make a software release now, the releases are all of a sudden, there's 90 different features going into it, whereas before there'd be 30. And if you think about that, the byproduct is each feature is a workflow process or something that can reduce the cost, improve efficiency of your staff. It will enable the staff to sell more, and it improves customer service in terms of speed. So you're going from this kind of world where there'd be a software update once a year or twice a year or once every 2 years if it's a big system, into this constant process improvement. And the human factor of this is all about, hey, well, guess what? The staff's going to fluctuate now because we're not going to have these rigid departments. We need to be able to kind of, adjust as what we're doing. And one of my challenges with our customers is to say, hey, are you really set up to take advantage of the technology now? Because the technology is one thing, but behind it sits all your internal processes. So I wanted to give you that as a thought, just to kind of think, don't just think about the technology, but also think about how you're going to implement the technology in your customers and in your staff. And are you really set up to make those process changes in, effectively, we're talking about near real time. So the technology is great. I hope that inspired you a little bit to kind of get a feel for what's around the corner and what we're working on and what the industry is working on. I always go back to this and try to get people to look up and step outside of what we're doing and have a look at the total market and the macro conditions. Is there a need for this technology in Southern Africa and South Africa? I mentioned I come to you a lot, and I also go to other countries and work with customers across the world, and South Africa, really is in a largely unique position. So we all went through the COVID pandemic. In Southern Africa, you decided to have all the floods. Then you had the riots and strikes, the super inflation, the load shedding. It sounds more like a Bible story than a country, to be honest. But stepping back and looking at it, this is the macro picture. And what we've got here is the billions of rounds gross written premium, which is the blue line, and the red line is the expenses of an insurance company. And what this is showing us is that for every round of premium written, there's a corresponding rise in cost. The simple equation: you do more work, you add more people to it. And it's a really interesting way of looking at it, because when I look at this, I go, where exactly is the technology benefit? We've been doing software for years, we've got amazing solutions in the marketplace. Where's the technology benefit? And then I look at the Southern African market as well, and demonstrates the huge potential we have. Insurance penetration is largely flat. I'm going back to 2018 there. Obviously, all this information is from the African Reserve Bank, so it's public accessible. Look at the gross written premium, look at insurance penetration. That's telling us a story as well. So when I think about the human aspect of technology, and I'm going to put this up and we're going to have to read it together so we don't forget it. I see it differently. I see the societal benefits. The Gen AI, the large language models, combined with what we already know, should equal a significant reduction in operating costs for an insurance company or financial service organization. A reduction in cost for insurance products means lower prices, which means more people can afford it. And if more people can afford it, that means there'll be a benefit for society for what insurance is supposed to do, i.e. share the risk. And I think looking at it this way around is the best chance of moving that penetration line up. How do we use the technology to reduce the cost? And that makes sure that insurance can do what it's supposed to do, which is protect people. And it's a lovely way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is a bit more complicated. So when we talk about AI and insurance, we actually mean everything. I will say at this point, you'll get copies of the slides. I'm quite happy to just, for Tony and the team to share this around to everybody, because there's an awful lot of content here. But look, in your teams, in your companies, you'll have workshops, you'll have people doing hackathons, and you'll come up with 1,000 of ideas. And it really is impactful. And I want to show you this just to say, look, we literally mean everything from underwriting, claims prevention, we talked a little about already, the customer experience, portfolio management, fraud and fraud detection. It's going to be persuasive, it's going to be everywhere. And it's really, really easy to get excited about it, but it's also really, really important we're pragmatic about it. And pragmatic about it means, hey, this is why your CEO hasn't pressed the button yet. I showed you the business solution on the software when I had the screenshot and all the different AI models that went into it. There's a reason for that. I started with SME and business because there's no personal data involved. So that's where I pointed our company's development chain at, because all these considerations have to go into it. And all these considerations are based not necessarily around the technology, but around the people that are going to benefit from the technology long term. So are you overwhelmed yet? Is it a case of, Tony, Graham, please stop the webinar, I want to get off? This is where I want to look at some lessons outside of insurance. And just give us a little bit of confidence, because we have actually been here before and it's not the end of the world as we know it. Does anyone remember 10 years ago, we had the massive media hype around driverless cars? So there's a headline there, driverless cars by 2021. I was working in this environment at the time, and the insurance companies and the finance companies were absolutely terrified. Number one, liability would shift from a personal to a product. There'd be fewer collisions. Imagine what would happen if we didn't collide our cars anymore. The personal automotive market in insurance and finance would shrink. There'd be a smaller vehicle park. It would be impossible for the insurance companies to differentiate themselves, and all the power shifts to the car manufacturers, and we'd be out of a job. Happy story. And it might feel to some of you that's where we are now. But what I'm saying here is this is what the car manufacturers did. They all got together. There's a society of motor manufacturers where all the kind of engineers all kind of contribute their ideas and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what they actually did is they spent some time defining what the driverless car looked like and what it meant. And they dialed it back and they said, well, actually, there's 5 stages to this. No automation, driver assistance, things like cruise control, partial automation. The vehicle can let you know that you're crossing the lane, the steering wheel vibrates, all those things we're probably used to in our cars today. Moving on to the vehicle can perform the majority of the tasks, right the way through to there's no steering wheel. And I looked at that and I thought, that's a really nice way of looking at it, because all of a sudden you're showing this transition from where the driver has primary control right the way through to the system has primary control. So I thought, what does that look like if we adapt this to the insurance world? So you look at level 0 today, manually processing of all the administration tasks. Level 1, automation of most or core tasks, but the user is always controlling the flow. Level 2, most processes automated. Exceptions are managed by an agent. And then level 3, level 4, end-to-end policy administration is largely automated for the common, Minoan lines, right the way through to, my God, no one's touching it, level 4. And I thought that was a nice way of looking at it, because it's important that we start to communicate this with each other, with the regulators, with the market, our customers, and internally, perhaps more importantly, for our businesses. This is the pathway, these are the levels we're doing, and this is how we're going to start the transition to the marketplace, and you can see it. I'm going to send you the copy of the deck so you can examine this in more detail, but I've defined what these kind of levels are as well. And honestly, if you want to contact me afterwards or contact us and discuss it more and use it in your own companies, I'm absolutely fine, because this is all about how we frame it and communicate it with our business. In software and in business process and insurance systems, this also helps us prioritize and develop the sequence of things. And we always forget about this, but using this kind of leveled approach, it helps us think about the demographics of our customer base, the consumers, the people, the businesses we serve. And I'll make that a really, really simple message. Good luck getting me to speak to anybody anytime. Just give me the AI chatbot every single time and let me manage myself like that. Flip side of that, have you met my mother? Good luck getting her to use any sort of technology. She's always going to want to speak to somebody. So this is a critical dimension to run across all of this. And your brands, your brand might be quality, it might be personal, it might be giving customers a hug. This is about how we co-agent, give the agent the support that we can do to serve that customer better. Or your brand or where you're aiming at might be low cost, high volume, in which case we want to automate everything as quickly as we possibly can to keep that cost down that we talked about. So it's a really nice way of thinking about it. You can have the slides and use it however you want, or contact me and say, hey, you're talking wrong, we need to look at it differently. But look, so that pathway, if I start to bring it back into the kind of components of an insurance company, and this is a largely subjective, honest assessment of where we actually are. I'm lucky I have 200 P&C customers or short-term insurance customers, so I get a real feel for where the market is. And the function domain, claims, customer service, underwriting, blah, 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 going down the side. And then that level, where are we actually in this process? So largely subjective. Claims and customer services is largely where the action is at the moment. Why is this? It's the highest volume. It's where the most cost of the insurance company or the financial sector is servicing customers. Some examples: customer service is Q&A, allowing you to go and ask what the customer's asking into the system and get that thing back in natural language, or coaching on how to support. Claims is all about ingestion, summarization of the document, first line triage, the kind of chatbots that assess the claim versus coverage. All these things are efficiency measures. And this is what I want you to look at. I don't want you to look at the colors of where we are. I want you to look at the white space. And the white space is my way of pointing to you and signaling that, my God, you can be inspired about this. And this is where, as leaders, let your people go. And I don't mean entrenchment by this. I mean, let their imagination, their creativity go. You saw the slide that showed the features of software going up incrementally or exponentially. And what I'm trying to say here is, look, software is not going to be a block to this. It should be the enabler to it. So when you think about this white space, you kind of go, hey, that's where I'm getting excited now. That's where I'm excited to be working in financial services and insurance, because I can now see the possibilities ahead of us. Right, conclusion. Just I'll summarize here, just a quick 4 bullet points. I suppose we could do summary. Look, the technology exists. It's developing at pace. Tony and I, we mentioned at the start, we spoke 18 months ago. We didn't have any AI in our company 18 months ago when we spoke. We had thousands of business rules, machine learning, all that kind of technology. And fast forward 18 months, I can show you those 2 screenshots that we showed a little bit earlier on. Technology exists. It's developing at pace. Southern Africa, my goodness, there's a compelling reason, financially and socially. The societal benefits, getting that penetration level up so more society can benefit of what the core function of insurance is. I love the pathway approach, that movement from level to level, because that gives us as an industry a framework or a direction to point at. And then the last one, look at the white space. Look what I showed you, and be inspired, and go into your organizations and go, hey, we can be the agent of change here. So listen, I hope that's a nice way of kicking off the rest of the discussions today. It's really important we learn from each other. So I was talking a lot there, but I'm probably looking more forward to the listening part a bit later on. And thank you so much for letting me kick off the discussion this morning.